Very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of Ghost Variations. We're going to pick up where we left off yesterday here on Jessanori, and the point here is that Yani is about to take a phone call from a very old, very dear friend. Anna tactfully left her to talk alone. Tom, darling, how are you? What are you doing phoning all the way from Ireland? When can we see you? Ah, Yani, you never change. Still the warmest welcome in all of England. Tom's voice sounded different. Not that she had spoken to him for several weeks, but she knew his tone almost as well as she had once known Sepp Kelly's. Tom could have become a professional pianist had he tried, or so Yani thought. Like Sepp, he won a music scholarship at Balliol College, Oxford. Like Sepp, too, he had lessons with Donald Francis Tovey, the Duraniers' oldest friend in England. Still, it wasn't easy to be a musician if you also had to please your family. Tom neither expected nor wanted to inherit the baronetcy in Ireland. But when it happened, he went obediently into the diplomatic corps. There he'd been as lucky as a tomcat. Landing on his paws, when the 20s were about to start roaring, he was posted to Paris. Yani remembered his apartment in the Rue de Seine, sunshine on the glass, the smell of fresh baking from the patisserie across the street, and waiting for her on Tom's piano, her black tango shoes with red heels. Her circle had vested interests in living as hard as they could, trying to swamp with fresh sensations the involuntary flashbacks to roaring guns or the arrival home of loved ones' books from the trenches, their torn pages splattered with mud or worse. This time, though, Tom sounded distant, a reed of a voice echoing from another world. "I've got some news, Yani." "What are you doing in Ireland?" Shy, please, do listen." Tom began to explain. He had been very ill in hospital. Now he had decided to resign his post and return to County Kerry. Sometime, he didn't know when, he would probably have to go into a nursing home. And that would be the end. "I'm sorry." Tom's dear, warm tenor cracked slightly. "There was so much I wanted to say to you, things I wanted to tell you and ask you. But now there doesn't seem to be very much point." Yani couldn't get her breath. If only she could rewind time to 5 minutes earlier when there was no phone call, when she thought Tom was perfectly well. But there must be something someone can do. "Have you been to Harley Street? You must see the best specialists." "I've seen them, my darling." "A second opinion, a third, a fourth. You must try everything. I'll help you. I won't rest until we find someone who can make you better." "It's too late, Yani. An operation or two might give me longer, but ultimately there's nothing to stop it." "But what is it?" "Something secret, silent, of which nobody dared speak. If this were the same it that had destroyed her mother, eating away at her until only morphine could ease the pain and only death could end it." "It is probably what you think it is," he said, sounding perfectly good-humoured. "But you are too young to die," Yani cried out. "I'm 50, hardly your average spring chicken. Besides, nobody is ever too young to die. Look, I've been lucky. I've had a wonderful life, wonderful friends, and wonderful you. And on balance, I prefer the idea of a short life but a fine one. Who wants a life that's long but horrible?" Yani was weeping onto a pile of unopened post. "How long did they?" "I may be all right for a while, especially if I go for the surgery I may see this Christmas. But as for the one after, who can say?" His equanimity astounded her. "When can I see you?" "If there's any time you could come to Ireland, I'm afraid I'm unlikely to be up to the crossing. And if you do, well, I can't promise to be the best company." Yeli grabbed the diary out of Anna's top drawer. Her spring was chock full of concerts all over the country: Torquay, Oxford, Bournemouth, the Wigmore Hall, and in a horrible irony she had to go to Belfast, but needed to come straight home the next day. Some musicians, Yeli knew, would cancel concerts with impunity. She never had. People invest time and effort in going to listen to you. You can't let them down. There has to be a time. "Yeli, it's all right, you know." A pause. She knew what he was trying to tell her. If she went, she would be going to say goodbye. She'd never said goodbye to Sepp. He vanished back to France when his leave was over, and that was that. "Listen," he said, "please don't feel you have any obligation towards me. I've never wanted to hold you back. Certainly not now. Do you understand?" She could scarcely say that perhaps he could have tried harder to hold her back, that it wasn't fair that she should have to endure him dying as well as Sepp and her parents and too many friends, and that he was not only too young to die but too good, too kind, and that to break off now, what little there was between them, would compound the unendurable with the inexplicable. "Isn't there something I can do?" she pleaded, skirting the issue. "Anything I can send you? Anything that will help, even if just a little bit?" "Yes," he said after a moment's thought. "Yeli, dearest girl, will you promise me one thing? Whatever happens, don't change. Stay true to yourself, no matter what it takes. You are the best, brightest star in my firmament. You know that. And you in mine." Their relationship was not really a relationship. It was a friendship blended with a might have been. Yet now that it must end, the lack of fulfilment hit home. "You couldn't belong to me," he said. "You belong to your music. You have so much to give, so much love and joy for everyone who hears you. Don't be distracted. It's your true purpose, and it will make you immortal. And then I can die happy, knowing you will, in a manner of speaking, live forever. That's all I want, my dear." Anna looked round the door, but stopped short, seeing Yeli in tears. Yeli put down the phone. "He's dying," she said. Yeli knew that without Adila, Alec and little Adrienne, and Anna too, should be adrift in a hostile ocean holding on to one tiny plank of violin to stay afloat. It was 10 years since her mother had died. Her father, left behind in Budapest decades ago, was a more recent but still seismic loss. The friends to whom she could turn in difficult times were at some distance. Donald Tovey lived partly in Norfolk, partly in Edinburgh. Myra Hess, her pianist duo partner, was in St John's Wood but spent months every year on tour in America. George, of course, was in Dublin. The grief assailing Yeli now was not something she would choose to inflict on any of them. "You should have married him while you could," said Adila unhelpfully, clasping Yeli to her jewel-clad bosom. "Shall I not go to the party? You shouldn't be alone tonight." "No, you must go. Please, Adi. He's still alive, so there's still hope. There has to be hope." "I'm here," Alec said, attentive and concerned. He would be busy, of course. His legal paperwork was interminable. Now there was anxiety that Japan might leave the League of Nations. He told his family little about his work, especially that for the League, partly because he was not supposed to talk about it. If Adila or Yeli pressed him for news, he would keep it brief, for instance explaining only that the new government in Germany was not well liked. Sorry about that little hiatus. My computer decided to put itself to sleep. I'll look after her, Anna promised. Yeli, why don't we go out to eat? Just the two of us. Around 8, they drove to Soho for dinner at Kettner's, Yeli's favourite restaurant. The oak panelling and slender staircases reassured her with their very familiarity. They picked a table by a generous window that gave them a vantage point overlooking Romilly Street, then ordered cocktails as a treat. Yeli distracted herself by telling Anna about dining here with Maurice Ravel, chattering in French, enjoying champagne and feeling somewhat underdressed, so elegantly attired was he. And about the night after a concert and the ensuing party, when she'd ended up playing Ravel all the gypsy music she remembered from Budapest. Soon afterwards, he'd told her he was writing her a new piece, provisionally called Tzigane. So I say I'll play his piece, Yeli said, gulping her white lady, and he says, wonderful, you must give the premiere at the Wigmore Hall. And the premiere is booked and the seats are sold, but where's my piece? You know when he sends it to me? 3 days before the concert. 3 days, can you imagine? Yes, Yeli. Anna had heard the story at least 20 times, possibly 200. Tzigane sounded desperately difficult. Ravel had been far from sure it was playable, despite giving Yeli only 72 hours to perfect it. It's not so hard once you know it, Yeli said, but I didn't. Normally at this point she would laugh, yet tonight the fragility of that experience seemed not silly but alarming. Supposing she hadn't succeeded? Supposing she had messed up the world premiere of Tzigane? Ravel wouldn't have been blamed, she would. The critics might not know what to make of the piece, but they'd have recognised second-rate violin playing. What a precipice she had lived on without even noticing. How much she took for granted. Had she learnt nothing from losing Sepp? Yeli, why didn't you marry Tom? Asked Anna. I think you love him, or you did once. Darling, of course I love him. I love everyone. The tears in Yeli's eyes made a fairground mirror distortion of Anna's face. There's no point thinking about it, not now. Supposing she'd married him, after all, 10, 15 years ago, and they'd had a little Adrienne of their own, or several, should have had to stop playing professionally, should have been Lady Monteagle, wife of a diplomat, an aristocrat, should be seen as a strange person with bizarre Hungarian origins, the daughter of a policeman, a woman who once upon a time used to be a famous musician. How shocking in those circles. Everything she had worked for would have been worthless. And after he was gone, their children would have spent the rest of their lives missing him. Yeli! Anna passed her a handkerchief. Hush now, your imagination's running wild. But you know I'm right. It's not possible to be a female musician and be married. It simply is not. Except for Adi, of course, but she's an exception. And Alec's an exceptional husband, letting her keep playing. But Anna was holding a forkful of baked fish and gratin dauphinois poised between plate and mouth. Don't you want to be married some day, Yeli? Why, darling? You do, don't you? Well, I think it's natural to want a home, children, security. Yeli paused. With Anna in the mood for domestic yearning, which was fair enough for any girl her age, she didn't want to reveal the image that the word marriage usually conjured for her, a goose-down pillow pressed over the nose and mouth. But to lose Tom, she could still see, too, the possibility she had sacrificed. Since Sepp, I just have had other things I wanted to do, she said aloud. And you see, I have a home and a child. She's my niece, but I couldn't love her more if she were my own daughter. And that's the end of episode 3. I'll see you tomorrow for some very strange events in episode 4. Bye.